At my age, I've been through a bunch of different church programs and been a part of a lot of great things happening in fellowships and in churches. And when I look back, I see God working in really amazing ways at different times in my life. And I look back and I go, He was really working powerfully then, and He was really working powerfully then. But what I remember most about these years at UD, that I don't remember about those other times, is that we felt it at the time. Like in the moment we were saying, this is a revival. In the moment we would say to one another, this is like Acts, where we were adding to our number daily. And that's the only time I remember thinking, I'm in a revival while I was in it. And that was really significant.
We are John and Caroline Finley. We are graduates of UD 1993, 1994. Sounds like that makes us legacy or something like that. We were both part of InterVarsity. We like to say we majored in InterVarsity through all those years. And I became a Christian there at InterVarsity, through InterVarsity in my sophomore year.
Coming in, I had grown up in the church and knew I wanted to be part of a Christian group, and that's one reason why I picked Delaware. My sister had gone there. I already knew some people from InterVarsity, and so I was a little bit familiar with the campus. When I was on my hall that first year, that we had what they called DFs, Dickens and Fellows, and the two guys on my floor were believers, and I feel like they really they did create a really great atmosphere on our floor with community, and just always being there, always being available, and always creating spaces to have community.
You know what I felt the most significant thing was, though, at that time? I feel like I had realized this community was for real. Like, these people weren't playing, at their faith. That they really did believe Jesus was for real, and it mattered. Like, this was going to shape not who they were in the present, but their futures. Now, here we are thinking about, what am I going to be when I grow up? They knew that Jesus was going to lead them, and I wanted that more than anything. I wanted someone I knew I could. I wanted a community. You know, people talk about you become belongers before you become a believer. I feel like this is the community I want to be in. People that really kind of offer an unconditional relationship. They're super caring, legitimately sincere about wanting to know who you are. They're sincere about their faith, and they truly believe that Jesus is shepherding them, through these years.
My name is Mark Lucenius, and I started University of Delaware as a freshman without really any faith background at all. I came to my first InterVarsity meeting. I was brought by a friend of mine named Eric, and it was like some sort of outreach meeting, and I was very, very intrigued by it. That's about all I remember. At the time, I came to school and my mother was sick. She was dying of cancer, and shortly after I got to college, I knew that it was only a matter of time. And so I went to University of Delaware with the same sort of red solo cup ambitions that every other non-Christian guy came with. But I also had this other thing that was just really big going on underneath the surface. Like, my mom was dying, and so I was asking questions that red solo cup wasn't going to answer for me. Just to spice it up, the storyline, I was also dating a Mormon who was in Utah. As I'm processing this, and I'm seeing Christians in my life, I'm seeing them live a much different life than red solo cup culture, right? And I'm thinking to myself, Jesus, he's got me figured out. I think he's telling the truth. I probably should do what he tells me to do. So that's going on in my mind. I'm like, I think I'm supposed to do what Jesus tells me to do. Like, that was my first like real good spiritual idea. I'm still working on it, okay? But it was my first good spiritual idea. The problem was I couldn't. And sure enough, I came back, and at some point in time, I was at an event where I heard the message of the gospel where it talked about how Jesus had died for my sins. It wasn't about what I did, but it was about what he did. That's exactly what I needed to hear, because what I was doing wasn't working. And I remember them saying, you can accept Christ into your life right now. And I'm like, I don't know if I've done that, but I'm just going to go and do that. And from there on, like, a whole bunch of things started changing.
So on my floor, there was one, when we first arrived, there was one Christian. Her name was Patty. And she was open about her faith, and she was very friendly, and we just got to be friends, and she introduced us to Ivy, and that's just kind of how it began. Well, it actually started the day we arrived here on campus. Towards the evening, a group of people gathered in my room with my roommates. It just sort of randomly happened. There were about 10 of us in that room, all on 4th floor Dickinson C. And we were just chatting, became quick friends. And it turns out that Patty was in that group, and she was the only Christian in that group that time. And God used her in a lot of people's lives in that room. I think 8 out of the 10 of us in that room that day became Christians over the course of the next year. All right, so Patty Flegel was a girl who ended up in our room that first night when we arrived on campus. We all became quick friends. She was the only Christian actually in the room at the time. And the way she tells it and the way I remember it is she had been praying before she came to school that God would give her Christian friends. And as soon as she met us, we became such quick friends. You know, the Lord worked on her heart, and over time she changed her prayer. She started praying, God, make my friends Christians. And that really had a big influence. And she wasn't shy about her faith, and she made sure we all had Bibles and invited us to IV and answered our questions when we had them. And so the Lord really used her a great deal in my life, in my roommate's life, and several other people on the floor. So
I think that one thing that I experienced in thinking about how this revival happened was it was definitely a both and kind of thing. We never quite knew how the Spirit was going to work, and some people became Christians because of a large group, because of a large group speaker, because of the fellowship and the friendship that they saw there. When we were meeting here in Dickinson, particularly in my junior year, we couldn't even fit in the lounge. We were all crammed in the lounge, and people were sitting out in the lobby area through the double doors that we popped open. And so people would walk by and go, what's going on here? And they would stop. And certainly people that had some Christian background and weren't quite sure if there were other Christians on campus would be captured literally on this Friday night at 7 when they were walking through the lounge. So there's stories of people becoming Christians at retreats and because of gatherings, large groups. But there's also people who became Christians in dorm rooms because of friendships, praying with their roommate, praying with their RA who was a Christian who chose to live on campus and be an RA. In my era, there was commitments to prayer, there was commitments to fellowship, and there was commitments to making relationships with people who did not know the Lord. And I think as you think of your upcoming year, I would encourage you to think of those 3 areas: prayer, fellowship, and interaction with those who don't know the Lord, as sort of what are my goals for this? And then talk to your small group and your roommate, like your smaller community, about about what your goals are for that. The fellowship as a whole is going to have some vision and some goals for that, but in my experience in the early 90s, there was a kind of a marriage between what the fellowship's goals were and then small groups of friends and literal small groups and roommates who had their own goals and their own vision from the Spirit that I think spurred on revival in those years.